the investigations take long. We continue to engage a National Treasury to make sure that we can clear most of these, and CFO will talk to what the broader challenges, categories are on that. About 800 million relate to 6 cases, as I indicated earlier on in the meeting that we had yesterday. And those are, we are committed to making sure that we clear all of those by the end of this year. Dianne will respond to the grant issues, and CFO will respond to the broader issues with regards to irregular expenditure. I'll come back, Chair, if need be. Thank you very much. CFO.
Can we get the response from the people?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Honorable CEO, and honorable members. I'll just respond to a couple of few questions that have been raised by the honorable members. Let me start with the issue of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure for the year under review. Honorable Chairperson, the AG did indicate that there's about 1 million of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Of that amount, only 9,000 Rand, actually 8,908 Rand relate to the no-shows. So it is not a very huge amount relating to the no-shows. It's about 8,908. We will remember that part of what we've been struggling with in terms of the pandemic was the issue that you can book for a hotel, and on the day that you need to go there, you find that you're not feeling well or you have certain symptoms and you're unable to go that side. And therefore, you may not be able to take an accommodation. It may not necessarily be because that
Apologies, Chair. It's unfortunate that the network in Pretoria is very unstable. Hence, the police keep on falling off and dropping off. What I will do is I'll ask, I will respond to the issue of the vacancies that Honorable Letitia requested a response to whilst the CFO is trying to come back again. On the issue of the vacancies, what we did, Madam Chair, is we had a situation last year where we had to take some of the operational budget and actually allocate it to the operations with regards to implementing the 360, hence we could not fill the vacancies at the time. We then looked at the key and critical areas in terms of what it is that we needed to do to make sure that we capacitate particularly the branches in relation to work that needed to be done. So this is on track in terms of making sure that all the vacancies that we have, wherever we still have the funding, we actually can fill those vacancies. It's important to note that in some instances, it's because the funding is no longer available. As the members are aware, we all have had budget cuts as institutions, and the budget cut that we had for this year was 600 million, and 50% of it actually relates to a cost of employees. And again, we're going to continue to have major cuts that are coming through this coming year. So those are some of the challenges that we actually have. As indicated earlier on the I will ask our head of legal to just respond to where we are with the 316 that we have with CPS. Apologies, I'm for being out of breath. I have a bit of a challenge. So I'll ask Lucy to respond to that in terms of where we are with CPS, and the expectation is that they will pay the interest once we get to the point of resolving the legal challenge that we have. Mrs. Siwe, I'm not sure if you are able to respond.
I am able to respond, CEO. Good morning, Chair, and good morning, members and colleagues. As far as the 316 is concerned, we are claiming about 630 million plus interest. The matter is still under a process because CPS has been liquidated. We caused the liquidation of CPS because it was unable to pay us, as it said its assets exceeded its liabilities. Its liabilities exceeded its assets. Now, the liquidators have not yet come back to us because they are still fighting with the SARS, because they want SARS to assess the finances of CPS. So they are waiting for the court to give direction, but we are claiming the money from CPS, and we believe that this money will be able to recoup, because this is the money that even the court, the Supreme Court of Appeal, says CPS has to pay back this money to us. So that's where we are. We are claiming the money with interest, and we're just waiting for the Constitutional Court to give a direction as far as the liquidators are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Busisiwe. I believe the CFO is back and he'll continue on the irregular expenditure.
Okay, apologies, Honorable Chair, I'm back. I was still explaining about the no-show. It was only about 9,000 rand. The interest and penalties was 61,000 rand for the year under review, Honorable Chair. And this is caused primarily because even though you will see that we've paid the invoices within 30 days, there are issues relating to the municipal invoices, because the billing period of the municipal services is not aligned to the 30 days period. So because of the lockdown and in other instances, some of the staff not being available. So although the invoices were paid within 30 days, but some of those have attracted interest. There was an amount of 266,000 included in the 1 million. And that amount relates to a payment to a service provider. We have opened a case of fraud in relation to that, because we realized later on that there was a falsified payment made to the service provider. The service provider was appointed to do training, but even though the training was subsequently canceled, the service provider actually made a claim, and there were validation processes that happened within the organization. So that amount of 266,000 we have reported to the police is currently a criminal case that we have done. We have also done an issue of consequence management relating to the 266,000. The other matters of 746, which is included in the 1 million rand, Chair, the bulk of that amount relates to two officials, one in KZN of about 550,000, where this official hasn't been coming to work and claimed to be sick. But when we wanted actually the proof from the doctors, the proof never came. This official has since been dismissed from the agency. But because we have paid the salaries in relation to this, we're currently busy with the recovery process. The other one relates to an official in Gauteng, amounting to 180,000. Currently, there's a disciplinary processes that are happening relating to the 180,000. That makes actually the 1 million in terms of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure that the honorable members have been concerned about. In relation to the high level in terms of the regular expenditure, Honorable Chair, the CEO has already covered that of the 1.2 billion that we started the year with, and we closed with 1.1 billion, 820 million relate actually to the 6 cases that we're currently dealing with. Included in that is some of the cases that the head of legal services has spoken about. I can confirm that, Chair, we have put in processes in relation to this, because you will have seen that in terms of the performance report, we said 434 cases of the 1,000 cases plus have been finalized. And we have put separately a concerted effort to finalize that. I did indicate when I presented to the committee that currently we have also some other cases for condonation that we have sent to National Treasury that we are waiting for. What we have done, there are 3 things that we have done in the organization, Honorable Chair. One is to prevent the ongoing irregular expenditure. And the bulk of the challenge that we're currently busy with, it is the issue of the procurement of leases. And that is one part that this year we're sorting out. And once we've done that, we'll have closed the door. The second part that we're dealing with is that in a case that we did not prevent irregular expenditure, it must be disclosed. The bulk of the irregular expenditure, which is the 20 million plus, was actually done by SASSA and detected by SASSA. So the detection systems are actually working. The third element has to do with consequence management, which is the corrective measures that were put in place, which I've already spoken about. Honorable members, Chair, wanted to ask about the reasons why the 278 million for the social assistance debtors, why Treasury did not approve of it. I can confirm that Treasury wanted us to strengthen two areas. One, it is the prevention. We minimize the incurrence of the debt. The other part to really have efforts that will increase the recovery. We have done two strategies, Chair, and which we're currently discussing with the department and also discussing with National Treasury. One strategy is the gatekeeping strategy that is actually strengthening the anti-fraud strategy that deals with the reviews, those people that are in the system, to make sure that those that are in the system are correct to be in the system. Also to look at how we interface in terms of the proof of life. The other part, it had to do with the issue of the enhancement in terms of the means test based on the learning of the 350. So that part, that strategy is currently being under discussion between the department and National Treasury. The second strategy, it has to do with the debt management improvement strategy. This has to deal with the recovery. One, which was to issue to focus on the public servants. The second part was to make sure that those that are currently in receipt of older people's grants or adult grants, we can do a deduction from SOCPEN. And any person that may feel that they will not be able to afford must make a representation to SASSA for consideration that in terms of the undue hardship, we can deal with that. The other part is to deal with all people that are over 60, that are currently not part of the old age grant. So we're pursuing that. The last part is the appointment of debt collectors because state attorneys are unable to deal with all the cases. So currently we're in the procurement state to deal with the debt collectors, and that will improve that. But we have already resubmitted to National Treasury to get another write-off for the year 2021-22. So we believe that this will be favorably looked by Treasury because if the amount cannot be recovered, then you'll have to write off. I think, thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I will ask Dianne to just respond to the grant issues with specific reference to areas of concern from the members. Dianne.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Honourable Chair, Honourable members. I will be brief. There was a question around the recovery of funds from people who received the 350 grant when they were not entitled to it. Just to say that we are going through a process of validating the findings from AGSA. Just as an example, we have been engaging with DPSA on the public servants that were identified by AGSA as having received this grant when they were not entitled to. DPSA has identified an 18% variance on what AGSA reported to indicate that although these people do still appear on PERSEL, they in fact are not currently employed and therefore were entitled to the grant. So we're going through that validation process, and then for everyone where there is a final confirmation that they do owe us the money, there is a process to register those debts, and we will be working very closely with finance on that. On the food parcel distribution, although the process was entirely manual, all the food parcels that were issued, there was an application form for it, and we went through an extensive process of reconciling those application forms and making sure that we could account for the food parcels that were issued. So we're very confident in terms of the numbers that have been reported. Certainly, there were some findings that one family may have received more than one food parcel because of the manual processes, and there are remedial actions that have been put in place to make sure that it doesn't happen again. I think one of the very hard lessons that we learned is that even in a time of crisis, we need to find systematic ways of responding to the needs of people and not doing this manually. Because of the numbers that we deal with, it just is not possible to control it if it is done manually. But certainly that reconciliation has been done, and we are confident on the numbers of people that we assisted during the period that we were distributing food parcels. On the cash send option, it is not yet available. With the reintroduction of the grant, we had to follow full procurement processes to be able to contract service providers. And for the contracts with the bank, we needed to get approval from National Treasury to go on a closed tender with the banks. That process is still underway. However, to try and limit the inconvenience to the people who chose the cash send option, we send all of them messages to tell them that it is not yet available and ask them to provide banking details where they had it. A number of people did provide the banking details, and we were able to pay them. Others, we, for the months of August, September, and October, sent the payments to the post office and did advise the clients. As soon as the contracting issues have been attended to, that option will be available, and people who chose the option we will revert them back to the option that they chose. We won't keep them in the alternatives, except where they've given bank account details that have now been verified. We will continue paying into the bank account. The fraudulent withdrawals of grants, this is a serious concern for us, and we continue engaging with the post office on this. The fraud is happening where cards are issued or in post office branches, and it really is a major concern, and it is something that we continue to engage the post office on to see how we're able to close those gaps. There have been some improvements in the management of the cards and the controls over the reissuing of the cards. We're now seeing challenges with the PIN resets that are being done, and this is what we constantly engage post office on. Not a resolution yet, but it is certainly a matter that is being attended to. On the call center, and we do acknowledge that there are still challenges in the call center just because of the volumes that we are dealing with. However, we have, with approval from National Treasury and after having followed a supply chain process, extended the contract for the service provider that is providing support to us. So we're back to a full complement of 300 additional call center agents, and we're certainly starting to see the difference in the response to the calls as well as to the emails. There is still a backlog that was created when we were following the supply chain process, but it is being resolved through over time that the staff are working to be able to catch up, particularly on the emailed queries. We are parallel to this process, modernizing our own call center environment by getting in additional up-to-date systems and technology to support what we need to do. And that is a parallel process so that we can manage the process in-house. But at least until March, we have the additional external support to help us respond to the numbers. And then just finally, Chair, on the question around the queues, managing the queues at the post offices, there certainly has been a huge improvement if we look at where we were last year this time. And that is because there have been alternative channels introduced by the post office where people are able to go to identified retailers to be able to access their 350 grant. And Post Office, together with the Post Bank, is continuing to expand that network. Currently, people can go to Pick n Pay or Boxer. It is being expanded to include the ShopRite group as well as SPAR. And then we are working very closely with them to look at expanding it to the Spaza Shop network in local areas so that people don't have to travel far to be able to access their 350 grant. So it is something that we will continue working on as we implement the 350 grant this time around. Thank you so much, Chair.
I think we're done with SASSA, CEO.
Yes, we are, DG. We've responded to all the queries raised. Thanks.
Thank you very much, CEO. Can we go to NDA, Mr. Makongo?
Thank you, Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson, and honorable members, and DG and colleagues. Chair, I will just request the acting COO, Mr. Brooker, to deal with all the issues that relates to partnerships and private partnerships and CARA issues on advertisement, jobs, and the complaint on unpayment of CARA projects. Then he will be followed closely by Mr. Shingange to talk about all the budget issues and irregular expenditure and the UIF investigation and the legal claims that we have. Then the last one would be Mr. Morule, who will talk around the turnaround strategy. I will then close by talking about all the issues that relates to CARA investigation and update to the committee, including issues that relates to consequence management. Can I just ask them to respond in that manner? Thank you, Chair. Mr. Brooke.
Thank you, CEO. Good morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members, and colleagues from the portfolio. Let me start by responding to the question by Honorable Harris around partnerships. NDA, during the period under review, entered into 5 cooperation agreements. One was with the NYDA, National Youth Development Agency. The one was with SASA Northwest, SASA Free State, and with Gauteng Department of Social Development and CARA. A detailed document indicating areas of these corporations will be furnished to the committee, Honorable Chairperson, so the members can go through their leisure. The second one was around exceeding the target on job opportunities created. Because of COVID, we had to revise the targets, and the target had to. If you may mute Zoto, Mr. Mbulane. That was because of the volunteer programs NDA undertook as a flagship program for the entity. If the question is broader than that, then we'll finish written details. Then the other one was around the UIF investigation. This was with respect to the Regenesis contract. An assessment report has been done by the agency. And now we are looking forward to establish a loss control committee. And our HR is busy with that process because it's not only the members from NDA that are gonna be part of that committee. So that we can look at and determine whether there is criminality or fraud in the process, so that consequence management can be introduced, and then HR process that can kick in, that includes a disciplinary action. And if the question is broader than that, Honorable Opperman, we are ready to furnish you with further details. Then the other one was around the CARA. The CARA will be busy from next week, the 15th, with assessing the proposal that we have received. That is it, CEO, from my side. Whereas the other one was around the turnaround strategy. I think Mr. Morule will deal with those issues. Thank you, CEO, and thank you, members and Chairperson. Thank you.
Mr. Shingang.
Thank you, Dr. Magongo, and good morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members of the committee, and colleagues from the sector. I will deal quickly with the issues related to the financial statements or to the budget spending. I will start first with the issue around the underspending. Chair, although the financial statement seeks to indicate an underspending, I think the underspending, for argument's sake, in relation to grant funding, was occasioned by the fact that some of the projects were approved very late in the financial year, but currently all those projects that were approved in the financial year but were not yet, where the funds were not disbursed to those projects. Those funds were subsequently disbursed to those projects in the first and up to at the end of the second quarter of the financial year. 99% of those funds that were approved in the previous financial year but not paid were subsequently paid by the end of the second quarter of the current financial year. So those were occasioned by delays in the approvals of projects, which mostly happened towards the end of the third and fourth quarter. And so, Chair, I think if we look at the overall underspending, I think in the overall budget of the NDA for the current financial year, I think I indicated, I think when I presented that at the end of that financial year, we were reporting a surplus of 15 million, but the surplus, Chair, I think if members can look at, I think slide 28, which indicates commitment. So I think members will see that it's not necessarily funds that we have not spent, but it's funds that were committed, where we had entered into contracts with various suppliers to provide various goods and services. But that's at the end of the financial year, those goods and services had not yet been delivered, but those we had subsequently applied to National Treasury to retain the surpluses in relation to those funds that were already were not spent at the end of the financial year, but they were already committed in the form of either purchase orders or contracts that were signed with the various suppliers of goods and services. Chair, then there was a question, Chair, that related to how did we turn around the underspending, the overspending that we were showing, I think, between the second and between the third and fourth quarter of the financial year. I think between the second and third quarter of the financial year. Chair, in terms of our processes at NDA, we halfway into the financial year, we do what we call a budget review, where we review how far we have gone with the implementation of the budget, and in areas where there's a need to readjust the budget, then we did a budget adjustment in October, and in December again, after National Treasury had cut our allocation by a further 8 million, we did another reprioritization of the budget to align the budget now to the cut in the budget that National Treasury had requested from us at beginning of the fourth quarter of the financial year, where our allocation was cut by almost 8 million. Then, Chair, there was a question that related to condonation as to how what was the response from National Treasury. Chair, we submitted those transactions worth 92 million to National Treasury for condonation, and the National Treasury had requested additional information in terms of the process that we had undertaken to do the determination. National Treasury has issued a framework. That's the framework that is followed in terms of how these transactions must be processed, and they had requested additional information on the process that we've undertaken to do what they call a determination. That report was subsequently submitted to National Treasury, Chair, and we await response in terms of now the additional information that has been provided to National Treasury to enable them to process our condonation application for the 92 million that was submitted to National Treasury. Chair, in relation to the question related to legal claims, Chair, the total legal claims that the NDA is sitting with, they amount to about 4.5 million, Chair, and those claims relate to 3 key cases. One was a claim by a supplier called Uhuru, where a supplier was appointed by an executive without following the necessary process. Then the NDA subsequently went to the court to apply for that contract to be set aside. Obviously, the court approved the setting aside of that contract, but obviously the supplier is challenging that process, Chair. But this case, I think, has not moved in the past 3 years or so. The supplier has not filed their follow-up affidavits in order to take the process forward. So the process is stuck at the moment, Chair, because the supplier did not file subsequent affidavits in terms of the process to take that court case further. And the same applies to the case with Panasis of 761,000. They are claiming an amount of 761 that the NDA is disputing, and that case, Chair, has also not moved because those suppliers have not filed their follow-up affidavits in terms of the court processes. So at the moment, Chair, we can only wait those suppliers to file their affidavits so that the processes can be taken forward. I think the same applies to the last legal claim by a supplier called Fair Deal. That process has not moved also in the past 3 years because the suppliers have not. The Fair Deal as well has not filed their affidavits. Actually, this supplier has also subsequently handed over this case to the public protector, and the public protector responded to the supplier to say if this matter is with the courts, the public protector cannot handle it, so that that supplier must decide whether they want to follow the legal protector, the public protector route, or the court processes. I think that's where those cases are, Chair. And Chair, there was a question that related to I think the freezing of about 16 or 17 posts in the previous financial year. Chair, when we did the budget reprioritization process around, the first one was done around June, when we reprioritized some of the budget to fund our COVID response to our response to COVID-19. Then those posts, Chair, were frozen so that we can free some of the funds for that financial year to be able to fund our COVID response. And going forward, Chair, the issue of posts at NDA will be handled through the process that is currently underway, the turnaround process that the NDA is undertaking. That process will also address the issue of what is the nature and amount of staff that the NDA will require going forward in terms of the turnaround plan that is currently being undertaken by this appointed supplier called Vision Active, that are assisting the NDA with the turnaround process, Chair. Yeah, I think, Chair, those were the issues in relation to the financials. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Magongo. Good morning, Chair and members. I'm responding to the question around the turnaround strategy. The turnaround strategy is being implemented at a total value of 4.5 million. And ordinarily, there will be recommendations arising from the implementation of the turnaround strategy, which will then be translated into specific KPIs in the APP. So the APP that we will implement in the forthcoming financial year will then be primarily led by the recommendations that are arising from the turnaround strategy. And this will also translate into specific performance agreements of individual managers, where these performance agreements have to be linked to the annual operation plan, which seeks to implement on a monthly basis the APP and the strategy over a 5-year period. So I think essentially we expect that the turnaround strategy will find I think, make a number of specific recommendations in a number of areas in the NDA related to organizational restructuring, related to the funding model of the NDA, the business and service delivery model of the NDA, and of which all of these things will then find implementation in the APP, the AOP, and the personal performance agreements of individuals senior managers. Thank you very much.
DG?
Thank you very much.
DG, can I remind you, we are left with less than 2 minutes to finalize because the meeting should have adjourned at past.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Makonga, I think we're done from NDA side. Chair, I was just going to close off by saying we really appreciate the comments and the inputs made by members. And we just want to indicate that we will recommit as the department, and in fact we must, to ensuring that our performance and our clean audits actually translates to the improvement of the quality of life of all South Africans on the ground, particularly those in township and rural areas. And again, this is based on the context of our developmental and transformational agenda. And of course, we do this through our results-based approach, as members would have seen. And this is directly from the guidance of members. And so we must appreciate that. But I also wanted to just indicate that we take note of the concerns raised by members, particularly with regards to underperformance, over expenditure, or rather under expenditure, irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure. We've taken note of that, and correctly so. Members have raised that with concern, and we have to recommit ourselves to also, rather as a portfolio, to do much better in these areas. And I think the aspects of consequence management in terms of how we should be reporting on that, we've been, we've taken really clear guidance from the committee in that regard. I just wanted to also indicate that we certainly welcome, Chair, the proposals for the committee to do much more oversight. I think that will be very useful. It will actually assist us in improving the areas that require elements of improvement, and it will actually complement our interventions on the ground, as the committee will interact directly with members on the ground. I think this is very useful, we'll be able to also work much closer with the provinces, and members will be able to see at first hand what is going on the ground. And then I just wanted to indicate, Chair, that we've noted the comments around the track record of the department of not responding on time. I think that we've certainly improved that significantly in the past, and the Secretary would also attest to the fact that when we are given specific timeframes, we do our best to respond to all, if not most, of those questions in that regard. So even within this context, I think as soon as we get the questions within a space of 5 days, we'll then be able to respond to all questions that we may have missed in this regard. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. I must just apologize once again for the Minister who's not able to join this morning. She's been in pre-arranged interviews and she's not able to be part of the meeting. And so if you could kindly note her apology in that regard. I would like to leave it at that, Honourable Chair. Siyabonga.
Okay, thank you very much, DG. We are on the ground right now as we are in public hearings. You know, there are lots and lots of concerns and questions that are being asked. And we are stuck in answering those questions. So the honorable members that were mentioning that thing really, really needs to be looked at it. And I'm sure we will be told on when the other meeting will be held, because we couldn't do even the follow-ups because of time. Thank you ever so much. The meeting has adjourned.
Thank you, Chair, so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, President Teaspoon.
Do your work. Thank you.
Teaspoon and a